y'all, it's Ms. Hanks. So we're just gonna do some examples of percents of numbers. First thing before we get started is I wanna make sure that our setup and how we wind up setting up to be able to get percents of numbers are very clear. All right, so usually in questions, they're going to have to provide you with some sort of information on what to be able to plug in here. They have to give you enough to where you only have one unknown space. Okay, so sometimes they might ask you for the missing part, sometimes they might ask you for the missing whole, and sometimes they might ask you for the missing percent. But you will always know this is out of 100. Okay, so if they give you, or depending on what they give you, you still have to make sure you keep this set up just like this. Okay, so if they ever give you the whole of the number, okay, or in other words, if they give you something like this on this first example, they say 55% of 140. That means 140 is our whole, and they want to figure out 55% of that. So that means you're missing the part, okay? So sometimes they'll give you certain parts and you have to come up with the whole. Sometimes you have to come up with the percent. But in this case, we're coming up with the parts, okay? So now that we're kind of familiar with our setup here, let's go ahead and do number one. So on number one, it says 55% of 140. So we're going to set that up, okay? Here's our part. Here's our whole, here's our percent, and it's always out of 100. Okay, so let's go ahead and fill in what we got. So we got our percent, and then that says of 140, so that means 140 is our whole, and so we're missing our part. So what we're gonna have to do is the same process that we did last week where we always had to cross multiply and then divide. That's what we're gonna do here. So we're gonna cross multiply to get cross products. X times 100 is just 100x. Drop down my equal sign. And then 140 times 55. So I'm just gonna do this kind of off to the side. 140 times 55. So 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 4 is 20. Carry that 2. 5 times 1 is 7. All right. Now I'm going to box this in just so we know that this 0 is our placeholder that we always have to do. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 4 once again is 20. And then 5 times 1 is 5. Carry the 2, that is 7. So add this. That's what we have right here. After that, divide on both sides because you got to make sure you get that variable all by itself, okay? Once you divide 100 by itself, that gives you 1. So that means all that's left here on this side is 1x, or in other words, x by itself. And then after that, you just wind up dividing 7,700 by 100. Okay, all you have to do is either that process where you just kind of knock out all the zeros because there's an equal amount of zeros on the top as there are on the bottom, or you could have just moved your decimal over 2 times and it would give you 77. Okay, so number 2. All right, number 2 says 40% of 123. So same process. Here's our setup. We've got part over whole and then percent out of 100. So they gave us the percent. It says 40% of 123. So that means 123 is the whole and we're missing the part again. So we're going to make sure that we cross multiply. Once again, 100 times x is just 100x, equal sign. 123 times 40 So here we go. 0, that's 0, it's another 0. Here's our placeholder 0, and then 4 times 3 is 12. Carry that 1. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 1 is 9, and then 4 times 1 is 4. So 0, 2, 9, 4. So that's what we have here. Okay, now all that's left is to divide by 100. That becomes a 1, so all that's left there is x equals, and then whenever we wind up dividing by 100, all we really have to do in this case, this time, is just move over our decimal 2 times. So 49.20, or you can just say 49.2, and that is our answer, of course. Okay.